So, the COP29 climate talks in Baku have finally concluded. What are your thoughts on the outcome?
It's a mixed bag, really. On the one hand, it's encouraging that they managed to agree on a deal to increase climate finance for developing countries. That's a crucial step towards addressing the climate crisis, especially for those nations most vulnerable to its impacts.
The article also highlights the role of the host country, Azerbaijan, in the negotiations. What were their challenges?
Azerbaijan was criticized for being disorganized and for not being able to effectively facilitate the negotiations. There were also concerns about their commitment to climate action, given their reliance on fossil fuels. It's a reminder that even hosting a climate summit doesn't necessarily translate into strong climate leadership.
So, what's the overall takeaway from COP29? Is it a step forward or a missed opportunity?
It's definitely a step forward in terms of acknowledging the need for increased climate finance, but it's also a reminder that the world is still far from where it needs to be. The negotiations were fraught with tension and compromise, and the final deal is far from perfect. It's a reminder that the fight against climate change is a long and complex one, and it requires a lot more than just financial commitments. It requires political will, global cooperation, and a fundamental shift in how we think about our relationship with the planet.
It's a lot to ask, but it's a necessary one. Thanks for sharing your insights.
You're welcome. It's a critical issue, and it's important to keep the conversation going.
But you mentioned a mixed bag. What are the concerns?
Well, the $300 billion annual target is far less than the $1.3 trillion that developing countries were asking for. And even that amount is contingent on a lot of factors, including private investment and international banks stepping up. It's not a guarantee, and it leaves many feeling like the wealthier nations haven't done enough.
It seems like there's a lot of pressure on private investors and international banks to contribute. Do you think that's realistic?
It's certainly a challenge. There's a lot of skepticism about whether private investors will be willing to put their money where their mouth is, especially with the current economic climate. And international banks are often criticized for their role in financing fossil fuel projects, so it's a big ask, but it's also a necessary one if we want to see real progress.
The article mentions that the deal is a step towards more ambitious emissions targets. How does that work?
The Paris Agreement established a system of regularly increasing climate action every 5 years. This deal is meant to provide the financial support needed for developing countries to set more ambitious targets for reducing their emissions. It's a kind of carrot-and-stick approach, where financial assistance is linked to greater climate action.
It sounds like a lot of pressure is being put on developing countries to take action. Do you think they're equipped to handle it?
It's a complex issue. Developing countries are already facing significant challenges, from poverty and inequality to lack of infrastructure. They need the resources and support to transition to a low-carbon economy, and this deal is a step in the right direction, but it's not enough. They need more than just financial assistance. They need technology transfer, capacity building, and a fair and equitable global system that doesn't leave them behind.